Yeah, as well said. We're in the midst of the deepest schism, social, scientific, if you want to think of it that way. But we're in this deep divide in humanity that's affecting all 7.8 billion people directly and indirectly. And so we have a profound expression of polarization that has occurred in the last 2 years, which is not new. This is simply the next iteration at larger scale of the original wound, which is a belief of separation, which is again disconnect. I believe that the original wound of humanity is that we believed ourselves to be separate from nature. And as soon as you believe yourself to be separate from it, then it leads to a scarcity mentality. And once you believe in scarcity at any level, you develop the emotions of fear, guilt, and shame. And you also start to develop a sense of need for ownership. And so you need to own enough stuff so that you don't run out because things are scarce. If you go to any indigenous, peoples and spend time with them, if they are connected to their original way of life and their original philosophy, they demonstrate very quickly what life looks like without a sense of scarcity, with a sense of abundance, the generosity that you will experience in the home of a family that is connected to their original indigenous awareness of self. They will give you the shirt off their back, literally, because there's no fear for them that they can't go make that shirt again that they already had brought out of nothing. And so there's this connection to source and that indigenous wisdom that is so palpable and so starkly contrasting to the Western mind, the colonial mind that believes there's not enough, so we need to go find more stuff. We need to go buy more stuff. We need to sequester more things, and we need to go after this, solution for scarcity. And by that, we've justified horrific events and behaviors. We've justified slavery and justified raping, pillaging, destroying indigenous peoples, their lands, in the march of, Western colonial machine that started with the Dutch and the French, and then ultimately the British probably perfected. And then America has figured out, its own version of colonialism. And then China has maybe perfected what the United States began, which is this insidious ownership of everybody else's stuff. And there's debt mechanisms by which China and the US do this to people. There's mechanisms by which we, buy the mineral rights and oil rights and water rights from, developing nations to give them a short-term infusion of money while completely stripping them of any long-term economic stability or, independent capacity as we eliminate their resources from beneath their feet. And so this insidious creep of scarcity mentality that comes from this original wound of we are separate, we are disconnected from nature, has now been expressed at the level of fear of a pandemic. And we have so come to believe ourselves to be separate from nature that we believe she's attacking us all the time. And ironically, we have chosen viruses to demonize because when you look at the march of life through history, with the genetic knowledge we now have of the human genome and all other genomes we've mapped, it's very clear that without the viruses, life does not advance on this planet. Without genetic communication constantly updating and upscaling and upgenerating life, there is no biodiversity on the planet. There is no life on Earth. And so we have demonized the very mechanism by which life progresses. And we have placed ourselves in opposition to that by this scare tactics and fear paradigm of the virome. And for that, we have now scaled, I think, to the very end of where this pendulum can move to, of our belief of scarcity, our belief of separateness. And it has to swing back now. We cannot push it any further than hating, fearing, guilting each other into fear around the fabric of life. And that's where we've gotten ourselves to at the scientific level. At the social level, we've done this through technology such as Google, Facebook, cryptocurrencies, and the like. These are all more and more severe abstract versions of communication. Google's interesting that it's not even communication, it's curiosity, that it became so popular for. So you've got a question in your head, you can Google it. Google for the answer. That curiosity being monetized, I think, is, again, as far as the pendulum swing can go towards the wound of humanity, which is, I think that the divine spark within us is curiosity. And when we allow curiosity to become the biggest generator of advertising dollars on the planet to drive consumerism, we've broken the whole system of our divine state. And so whether it be Google there at the level of monetizing curiosity, or Facebook, Instagram, and the like, monetizing social connection, or the farming industry monetizing biology at the fabric of the food we eat, when we decided to create abstract economies out of the fundamentals of nature, we have brought ourselves to the end point of life. And so this is why extinction now emerges as an inevitable consequence unless we reconnect. And so you could not have picked a better theme for your 2023, because without that reconnection, we march right into, or right off the cliff of, our extinction event here.